know what she said, she might just change your life.
When you hear that song, you know what that means. It means we're going to talk about hair with the guy who knows. It's Jason Kearns from Kearns & Co. Welcome, Jason. Good to have you back.
Good morning and a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So, we are going to be talking today about something that I think some people don't spend enough time doing, which is how do you decide on who's going to be your go-to for your hair? When we're searching for a hairdresser, let's take us from step one. What do we need to do?
I think first of all you have to know, well, you have to see how dissatisfied you are with your own hairdresser.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, take a look around and see what is out there. And when I mean see what is out there that's right for you. And you can do this in many ways. You can do this by seeing somebody's hair you love, mm-hmm. and approaching that person and saying, well, where do you get your hair done? Mm-hmm. Which a lot of people are nervous to do, but I always think it's a compliment to the person who's got the great haircut. Mm-hmm. That, you know, somebody's coming up and saying, well, you know, I really love your hair. I'd like to find out where you got it done. And, you know, then there's other ways of doing it. I mean, there's research. There's by going out online and seeing what's out there and looking at reviews on different salons and different hairdressers.
Are there hairdressers that are better for certain types of hair? I mean, you know, than other types of hair? Always.
I think you have to, you know, if you've got curly hair, you're going to look for a hairdresser that's good with really curly hair.
And how do you know that? That's always the thing. How do you know? You see somebody's hair, say, "Oh, I love it." Now I've got a completely different head of hair, and I go and I'm going.
Just read.
You know,
you have to read.
Not that good.
You know, read. Look through magazines. Go in, and when you find a salon you think you might be interested in, don't be frightened of going in and asking to have a consultation. And it shouldn't cost you anything.
You know, I think people are very intimidated by hairdressers. I have to tell you, in my life, I've been, you know, I would go to a salon and they would tell me what you know, the way it was going to be, and I had no choice. Mm-hmm. And I was almost afraid to say, well, I don't want my hair like that.
Yeah, I think that.
It wasn't.
I mean, I've lived through that too, and I think those times have changed. I think, you know, the consumer out there is very aware of what's going on. And they're more in tune with what they think is going to suit them. There's always an element of maybe it won't, maybe it will. Mm-hmm. But, you know, you have to go in prepared. I think there's nothing wrong with going in and taking in photographs or taking in clippings from magazines and saying, look, this is where my headspace is coming from for my hair. Is it going to work? Can it work? Can I achieve this?
And the other thing I think that people forget about, and I always forgot about, was then I have to maintain it. So do you think now hairdressers are more expecting to have a conversation where you sit down and you sort of negotiate? You say, okay, this is what I'd love. Would this work for me? How much work will it take? And that person will say, this is wrong for your face. It will take you an hour in the morning, and your hair isn't the right hair for this.
I think if they're a good and honest hairdresser, they'll tell you that.
Yeah.
They will. It's not about a question about getting somebody in and out. It's a question of maintaining them as a client, not rushing them, giving them what they need and what they want as well. And, you know, the hairdresser obviously has to have that input and have that freedom to be able to do it. There's no point in going in if you're adamant about, you know, getting your... just taking half an inch and you want a complete change. Yeah. Taking off your hair. I mean, I've had situations, and one in particular many years ago, and I'm going back a long time when I first came to Toronto. I had a client come in, and she was a brand new client. And she said, oh, I was recommended to you. I really need to change and want to change my hair. So I said, great. Mm-hmm. So we talked, and everything I suggested, she said, oh, I can't do that. And I can't do this. And in the end, I just said to her, can you tell me why you can't do this? Or any of the things I've suggested? And she said, well, because of my job. And that's when I drew. That was the end of it for me. I said, look, I can cut hair for people. I can't cut hair for jobs.
Yeah.
And, you're cutting hair for a person.
Yeah.
And how their lifestyle is as well.
Yeah. And, a good hairdresser can communicate well. Because I've over the years, I've got the finest hair in the world. So I've been told no to most of the haircuts I've gone and asked for. I remember back as a young girl, I wanted Farrah Fawcett's hair, and it's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And then, and then in the early mid '90s, I want to have when Friends came out, I wanted the Rachel haircut, and yeah, it won't look like that. And but I was lucky to always, wherever I was working, living at the time, to always have managed to find someone who could gently tell me such things and usually I wanted a change. I'm always up for a change. I was willing, and yet someone that was able to kind of say, okay, I get you'd like that. We can do this. Similar in feel. It's not the same because you're not going to get that. But I think our good hairdresser, aside from having all the great hair skills, has people skills too.
You have to, 100%. There's no question about that. If you don't have that, then it's just about ego, and I don't know. Ego to me needs to be left on the hook outside the door before you walk in the room. From a hairdresser's point of view, anyway. There shouldn't be any need for it. I mean, if you're good, you know you're good, and you don't have to broadcast that you're good. Your work will speak for itself. But that communication is essential. Whether it comes to cutting, coloring, putting somebody's hair up, anything, products, you have to be able to communicate and be patient.
Well, I think the relationship between women and their hair is so emotional.
Oh, it is.
It's unbelievably emotional, and I think, I recognize that it is for me. I want certain hair that doesn't look great on me, but I want longer hair because, I don't know, because it makes me feel more secure. It's something to hide behind or hang on to. And I think women have different things about whether it's the color, whether it's the cut, whether it's bangs or no bangs or whatever. They have emotional ties to certain things about hair. And do you find it's hard sometimes when the person doesn't recognize that it is an emotional decision they're making and not a style decision?
I think the emotions are, as you say, it's very, very strong in a lot of cases. But you've got, if you find a hairdresser that you like and you love, and you enjoy what they do, then you've got to trust them. If they make a decision for you, or they say, well, we should do this, and there's a compromise made, sometimes it hinders the hairdresser's ability to create. And that goes in every field, I think. If you give them that freedom after you get to know them, I think personally it's a better thing. But, it's hair. Some things work, some things don't. And it does grow back.
Yes. I've always had consolation in that. The other part of it, aside from the cut, is a color question. And I find finding a good color technician it's so important because, man, you can get some damage done if you don't.
This is where, as you mentioned before, the consultation, the emotions, the concerns come in even more so, I think, than hair cutting. Women are really, people in general are very concerned about their color. And there's so many disasters out there, and there's so many good colors out there. And there's so many good heads of hair and so many heads of hair that have been damaged to beyond control. And when you've got this type of a situation, you need time. You need time to consult. You need time to get it back to normal, and you need time to pick out that color that's right for you. But sometimes you're not always going to get it immediately. And if you find a good colorist, work with them. A good colorist will help you decide where you want to go, even if you have a disaster. But be prepared to, it's going to take time and it's going to cost money.
If you've had a bad experience, I've had a couple over the years. If you've had a bad experience, what should you do as a you get home and you're like, oh man, this is bad for whatever the reason may be. What's the next step? What do you do if you need to fix this?
It depends on the level of badness. I think if somebody really does creates a disaster for you, You can go back and you can complain, you can ask for your money back, you can do lots of things, but it's not really going to fix the problem of the hair. You need to get the hair fixed.
And that's the thing. In two particular instances, totally different disasters, but after it happened, I didn't trust the facility enough to go back to that, and I would go somewhere else and pay. It costs a lot of money to fix problems, but is that the best course of action? Should you go back to a salon owner and say, and maybe not, I'm not at the front counter in front of the entire salon, because I'm sure there are good people there, but do you call the salon owner and take them aside and say, look what happened?
Well, I think that's a good start, is to always do that. As you say, you call that salon owner and you talk to them. And if the salon owner is smart, he will work with you rather than against you. I mean, things happen. Mistakes happen. And unfortunately, it reflects on the client's hair. But I think you need to be able to discuss it. And I think if it's not the salon owner, speak to the hairdresser that did it first. And maybe you should speak to the hairdresser first that did it. And then if you're not getting any satisfaction, we'll then talk to the actual owner.
So did you not realize that there was a problem when you walked out?
Well, no. I'll tell you why. In both cases, just out of... It's interesting. The first one was literally, oh man, it was let's just say a friend of a friend that was working at the salon who was, who had a very high opinion of herself. Anyway, she did my hair.
An ego, you mean?
Yeah. And what she did with highlights is put too much dye in the packet, so when she folded them up, it squirted out. She realized her problem. She spins me around and blow dries my hair, not facing the mirror. And you didn't see it so much till I got home, and there were polka dots underneath because all the dye had squirted out in different places, and it was also not the right color. That was one. The other one was literally a salon that was using concentrations of the developer, I guess, that were way too strong. I left. It was okay. The next day, my hair broke. So it looked fine when I walked out the door.
And how long did it take you to fix that?
Oh,
how long did it take you to get back to normal?
Oh, it took months. It had to grow. It just has to grow. And there's nothing else you can do other than get things trimmed up so that it doesn't look as fuzzy and let it grow back.
And this is why I say do your research. Look, talk. It doesn't cost anything to go into a salon, any good salon, and have a consultation with a colorist or a hairdresser. They're only willing to have... They're only too happy to have a new client come in, and they want to please. And if they don't, well, then that's the wrong hairdresser for you.
Well, I figure
If
that
it's all
head
about
of
them.
hair is a billboard for them.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a walk-in advertisement, and you need to look after it, and they need to look after it, and you need to be happy and have the right thing for you.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir. Always looking fine and keeping everybody else looking great. Jason Kearns, you can check them out at kearnsandco.co. Christine?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Okay, that was great.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.